2 years ago, I met a great business leader. His name is Mr.Nivran Weerakoon. I met him over a coffee, and on that day I decided that I must interview him on my show. So today I have him here, and I hope that I will have a great insightful discussion. Okay, Nivran, I'm interested to know about what your life was like when you were my age.
So Nithila, when I was your age, that was when I was back at CIS. I was 13. I think you're 13 yourself. At that time, I was driven by an ambition to achieve, right? And my first goal was to do relatively well at O levels. So focus on O levels. In life, sometimes you need to focus on what is at hand, right? Then achieve immediately what is nearest to you, and then you think about the remainder of your achievements and what you want to do with yourself. Ever since I was younger than even what you are today, I always wanted to achieve. Back in the day, I would say I want to become a CEO. Now, in hindsight, if I say I want to become a CEO, I might say, no, I shouldn't have said I should have wanted to become a CEO. I want to become a leader. As a leader, you can inspire others. CEO, yes, it's a position, a title. But you can be a leader at school, you can be a leader among your friends, you can be a leader as an entrepreneur. So many ways in which you can be a leader. So back in the day, why did I say I want to become a CEO? Because growing up I hear the word title of CEO, being a very successful person, right? So I want to be or pursue success. And you know, growing up I was the only child, right? So what I was exposed to was, you know, my father and so many other people that he would know who were from corporate life. So whilst, you know, being the only child is good in one angle, it's bad also from another form, because people have a perception. They have a perception. Oh, only children are so selfish. Only children are like this. Only children are spoiled. I disagree completely, because when you are only child, growing up as a child, you tend to become more friendly with people. You connect better with people. And today, if you ask me, I think I can connect with anyone, because growing up, all that I was exposed to was to connect with people, right? Make new friends, even make friends with people who are older than me. So if you ask me at your age, what did I want to do? I wanted to achieve. I had this innate passion to achieve, right? Achieve in my studies, achieve one day in business, right? And at times I used to think, back in the day, okay, anyone who was out there, who had a vision to achieve something, right, was someone I appreciated. And I'll be like, I one day want to become this person. So my message to other youngsters like you is, think of what they want to achieve in life and put the effort to achieve it. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much. So being the only child and your father also being a corporate leader, I'm sure your first job must have been a very big and important one.
No, Nithila. Actually, I started off my first job as a management trainee. I think most people who start off with a qualification, either professional qualification or with a degree, you know, it's always good to start off as a management trainee. As a management trainee, you get a cross-functional experience across divisions, and you are really exposed to the business. So strangely, you said I would have got this, you know, glamorous job. As a management trainee, when I started off as at Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation as a management trainee, right? And at that time, you know, I was put to a department which was the only floor which was not AC, right? Where it was kind of really warm, kind of trying conditions in terms of really getting work done. When you are used to a degree of comfort and then you are exposed to that kind of environment, it makes you battle hardened, I would say. And why do I say battle hardened? I was put into a department which was called credit control, right? which I think in companies it's very important to have credit control, because that's when you collect your cash for the company. A sale is not completed unless you collect cash. Second, I was put to a department which was called the commissions department, and this was a commissions department with regard preparing commissions for insurance agents. Number 3, I was put into a department which used to bring sales and like corporate sales. And then finally I was put to, or towards the latter part of my experience as a management trainee, I was put into finance, which was my qualification in accounting, right? So at the time, I asked my superior, why did you all take this path? And a very interesting answer was given to me. They told me, if in life, when you start off a career, if you do not understand the fact that cash coming into the enterprise is key, then you will never be able to be successful. Companies go into crisis because they focus on the top line but not on the cash flow. So that was one golden lesson I learned. Number 2, no matter how successful you feel you are, it is your sales force and the rest of the team that is driving your success. And in enterprises where a sales force is dependent, they need to be highly motivated. So if for what they achieve, because most sales organizations or organizations that are focused on a drive for sales will be driven by those who are earning a sales commission. So you need to focus on incentivizing your teams so that the results, will be apparent to the company and to the leader eventually. So then thirdly, going back, sales, right? So we spoke about collections, then we spoke about commission preparation and the act of selling. If you do not know how to sell your product or service, there is no way that anyone can record numbers. So I think if you take me, I started off as a management trainee with very well-rounded experience, right? Understand what really drives the business, and that knowledge that I gained has helped me to move across industries. So from starting off as a management trainee, later on becoming a CFO, then later on becoming more chief executive at handling total leadership, of course now leading companies, right, and sitting on certain boards, has really broadened my skill set and my experience. But if you ask me, I started off from the basics. So when you know the basics, you know how to build a business or how to survive in any company. So those, and I advocate, even there may be people who would be listening to this, youngsters, maybe parents who are entrepreneurs, get your children, or if you're a youngster, start off at the basics, get the basics right. It will really help you when developing your career or progressing in your entrepreneurial journeys or pursuing your leadership goals. Because if you start from the basics, there is no way that you would fail.
I get what you mean. I heard you worked in a government organization. What was the experience like?
So, Nethila, I think I have to correct you there. Not worked, actually served on the board of a government institution. So, actually it was the state-owned power distribution company, LECO, Lanka Electricity Company. So, it was a very interesting experience because when you take some of these government institutions, the beauty of it is you have very, very skilled people working there. But what I noticed there was that skill is on one part, but the mentality of people sometimes. Whilst I must also appreciate that there are people who are very aggressive, they're trying to drive for change, etc. But there is also a degree of being complacent. So when I served on the board, one of the key elements was to look at how do we drive greater performance, right? So I still remember at one meeting we brought up this formula of KPIs, and everyone was like, really worried to think, if they start analyzing KPIs, what will happen to our 3-month regular bonus that is going to take place, or that we are entitled to. No, we were not going behind that. What we were trying to see was how do we make people feel more accountable, or how do we make people, excel in their roles, knowing what they're supposed to deliver. And slowly but surely, we were bringing about that change. So now, I also would like to highlight that, when we say a government institution, we have this very, very negative perception. Oh, it's a state-owned entity, it's so slow, the people are lazy. But really working in a government institution, you have so many positives rather than negatives. And those of us who are going from the private sector to serve on a government institution's board, what we should really try to drive for is basically unlock the true potential of these people. Because through the government recruitment scheme or through certain programs, some of these graduates who come in there are highly knowledgeable, right? So the staff is highly knowledgeable, but it is up to us to unlock in them the potential to think, work in a government institution, but serve the customer as though they are working for a private entity, or make them believe that it's rather than purely working for the government, they are working for a company that has to be having profit maximization as their goal. Then the service quality drives the enterprise. Then when you want to improve service or you want to improve the profit of that entity, automatically you work with a mindset of wanting to do more. So I think we as a nation should relook at how we view people. It's very unfair to pass, judgment without really knowing what the other person has as a strength, what the other person has a weakness. So I always advocate for Sri Lanka to have a positive mindset. So it is us as the private sector. If we account for 80% of the economy as the private sector, it is up to us to also then go back and inspire the government sector to deliver outstanding results. And there are people in the government sector who can really deliver outstanding results. So I hope that clarifies your question.
Yeah, thank you very much for that insight. Tell us about your various engagements as a director in many companies, including public listed companies.
So Nethila, my time, it's all about allocating time to the various engagements that I'm engaged with. So Media Monkey, which is my advertising company and for which I'm the managing director, that's what takes a reasonable amount of my time when I'm in Sri Lanka. With regard my other engagements, it's quite diverse, right? One is my engagement as a non-executive director at Royal Ceramics. So when you're a non-executive director, I also serve on the audit committee and there are some other committees at board level which I serve on. So it's more about governance. It's about basically either endorsing or refining the strategy that the management would be presenting to the board, and also trying to ensure that the checks and balances in terms of the goals for a period or for the company are in check. So it's more governance related role when you're a director of a public listed company or of a conglomerate. However, however, as a director, there is so much value that you can also contribute to these organizations given your core strength. So what is it that is my core strength is, I am from a finance background. So in terms of certain financial related best practices, etc., there is value that we can contribute. Then take it to Delmege, where I sit on the Delmege main board. So we have diverse sectors at Delmege. So there again, I am exposed to many industries, and it's up to us to see from an outside perspective what is it that we can help management in terms of our input to improve, right? Then another engagement as a director is in a home automation and artificial intelligence based company. Now over there too, it's about seeing what is the product that the company has, or what is the service that they intend to supply to the customer, and how do we commercialize it, right? So that also doesn't again, what the diversity of some of these experiences is such that one may ask, oh, you're not a tech person. How do you sit on the board of a home automation company? No. If you have the mindset to deliver value to whatever the enterprise that you are engaged with, then you would have such a broad mind. And also, it's the amount of knowledge you collectively gathered. You don't need to be an industry expert. Recently, someone asked me, are you a generalist or a specialist? It's more about being a generalist when you're a leader. As a generalist, you will have a fair knowledge of the industry. But as a generalist, you'll be exposed to so much of knowledge. It's up to the generalist as a leader to ensure that the specialists deliver outstanding value to the enterprise. So, if you ask me, my engagements, advertising, tile manufacturing and other related services in the construction sector, diversified holdings through Delmege. So, at conglomerate level, we will have sectors in FMCG, insurance, travel, building products, interior decor. It's wide. Then on the tech side with Kasper Global, then in terms of another industry, airline, we are trying to bring in a budget carrier to Sri Lanka through Fly Lankan. So, I mean, the diversity of the industries that I am exposed to, I mean, sometimes even I myself am amazed. How do I switch between these industries and these sectors? But I never say that it is difficult, or I don't have time, or I am busy. What we as individuals, and when we grow up to become leaders, we should be able to allocate, find time and add value. If we do not add value, then we should not be engaged with those entities. But the fundamental question that youngsters like you should ask yourselves is daily and in your growth phases is, am I truly adding value? Am I really passionate about what I am doing? Right? So, I may be involved with certain industries, but there may be people who are involved over a larger scope of industries. But the fundamental question is, are you adding value? So, whenever I am engaged with something, first question I ask is, can I add value? If I can't add value, then I politely say that I can't be involved with it, because I would not be delivering at my best to the organization, and the organization would be able to get someone who's better able to deliver value to them. If not, I will be very selfish in my approach.
I'm amazed and I have learned a lot.
I hope it will be insightful to others as well, Nathila. So that's why, some of these answers are slightly more elaborated, but that's in the best interest for any youngster to not be constrained to any specific industry. Have the capacity to go across industries, expand their horizons. That is my message to youngsters who would be watching it, and their parents too, to encourage children to go beyond the confines of one area, so that then they would really become, wider, more diverse leaders and highly successful people who can contribute to the growth of this country.
You mentioned something about Media Monkey. Can you tell me a bit more?
Okay, so Nithila, Media Monkey is an advertising company for which I am the managing director, and I believe I am the driving force of Media Monkey, right? So Media Monkey is a creative agency at heart. So I don't want to typically say it's an advertising agency, but I'd rather like to look at it as a creative agency. So through creatives that we generate, we've now turned it into an entity that has a strong presence in the digital space, and our speciality, I would say, today and most recently is doing research-based 360-degree campaigns. Right? In advertising, in the advertising industry, I'm sure you are exposed to a lot of digital media and various other forms of advertising, and there are so many case studies, referrals, etc. on successful advertising. But what we have now adopted is approach to advertising which is research backed. So most recently we increased the turnover of a large stationery company by nearly 2-folds, purely by doing research, right? And when you do advertising based on research, you really understand what the consumer wants, what are the industry dynamics, and what really drives that business and what will help the business thrive. So today at Media Monkey, what we do majority of the time is research-backed campaigns. But we also, do outstanding work in terms of our creatives, in terms of some of the productions, TV productions. So we recently produced a music video which became a hit. Actually, it really applies. The music video is in relation to a very successful singer and doctor who's, again, let's talk about diversity. I spoke about diversity earlier. A musician who's also a doctor, right? I don't know if you have heard of him, Dr. Pradeep Rankana. And that talks about reminiscing his time back in school. Now tell me, as a youngster, I'm sure you will have so many memories at school.
Yeah.
Later on in life, right, when you're probably 34 like me, and there are others who are interviewing you, you'll have some fond childhood memories to talk about, right? Yeah. About school. So we produce a music video which takes people down memory lane. So we do various kinds of executions from a creative standpoint, productions, creative scripts. Also today, my aim through Media Monkey is to really look at taking businesses overseas, taking Sri Lankan businesses overseas, grow their export orientation, and also not merely become an advertising agency or the creative partner. I want to play a role in the growth of these enterprises. And today it's about establishing brands. Some people have brilliant ideas. People have amazing products. But sometimes they've not converted that into a brand. And the brand is what creates a value. Today when you say, Nethila, you yourself is becoming a brand, right? You yourself through masspreneurs, you're building your brand, right? Am I right in saying so?
Yes.
So by doing that, why are you having your own website? Because you want Nethila to be associated with a brand.
Yeah.
Today, Nethila's Cinnamon Chat is also a brand, right? So today, my aim through Media Monkey is to create highly successful enterprises, highly successful brands, right? And through Media Monkey, be a change for Sri Lanka and also drive the brand Sri Lanka and position Sri Lanka with such positivity that we will see our fortunes in Sri Lanka improve and economic prosperity also being brought about by our own little contribution. So that's my role with Media Monkey. And also to inspire a younger group of people and create an enterprise in which people will want to work for me for a lifetime.
That's amazing. Looks like I may need your help in the future.
For sure. We are all about developing brands, right? I always tell some customers I have, right, who turn around and tell me, oh, I'm a startup. I don't have big budgets. But if I believe in that product, I would always tell them, pay me what you can. So Nethila, for your growth, what I will offer you is free services. The day you can afford to pay me, you're going to pay me. Is that a deal?
That's a deal. So what is your take on kids and teens learning entrepreneurship?
Okay, learning entrepreneurship is one thing. I personally believe that entrepreneurship should be brought into the curriculum. That's how you make people as youngsters believe in business. To how do they monetize their passion? How do they monetize what they are most passionate about? People might have a product. A youngster might have a product. A youngster might have an innovation. A youngster might have an idea which can be helping someone, with their daily lives, right? That means they develop some product, maybe as a service or whatever it may be, maybe through an app, which was the brainchild of a youngster. Now, the moment you bring in entrepreneurship to the curriculum, youngsters are trying to think like businessmen, how to monetize their idea. So, for me, even prior to entrepreneurship, my suggestion to you and I think to all others who may be watching is, first encourage children to identify their passion. Let the passion be the driver to entrepreneurship. Because unless you are passionate about something, you can't make a business of it. There are so many businesses that have failed just because they lack passion. So a youngster's passion may be, something
To solve a problem.
to solve a problem. One is passion, and also businesses that thrive are businesses that are solving someone's problem, right? And why not? If a kid wants to do something which is completely out of the ordinary, why not allow him to? As long him or her to achieve, right? Sometimes we may have a girl who wants to do something which looks very familiar to a boy, right? In a boy's world, but she might have the best way of executing it. We might have a boy who has an idea to solve some problem which is from a girl's standpoint, right? What needs to be encouraged is for people to identify their passion, identify what's the problem they want to settle. Then entrepreneurship becomes a far easier task rather than say, oh, let's create a bunch of entrepreneurs. No, let's identify people who have an innate passion for something and an innate passion to solve problems. Then we'll have far more entrepreneurs come out, right? Now, you yourself wants to bring about a wave of entrepreneurs through your enterprise, right? That's what you are trying to do. So are you solving a problem?
Yes.
You're basically guiding people. Even maybe you're making the next biggest ice cream brand for Sri Lanka. I've read about you here on LinkedIn as well, some of your posts. You're helping people develop a bunch of youngsters. Maybe their passion for ice cream came because they enjoy the taste of ice cream, right? We live in a hot country after all, right? Ice cream is enjoyed by young or old. So maybe that's their passion, right? But what you must do is, right, because you're a youngster who's really emerging, make sure that that passion is converted to a brand. Make sure that that passion can be taken international. Make sure that that passion is accepted nationally, not just as a sample project. How do we commercialize it? Believe me, if those kids that you work with, or any other child for that matter, has solid passion, there will be more than enough people who are willing to come and invest and commercialize that passion.
I know you're doing business outside of Sri Lanka, so what advice can you give to a Sri Lankan who wants to capture the global market?
So, Nidila, fundamental to capture a global market, which I believe is, and a lot of people are doing this wrong at the moment, is focus your core strength in Sri Lanka. Because if it is Sri Lanka that gave you the foundation to go overseas, when you go set up a business overseas, it is not immediately that you realize returns. Everything takes a process. And if your main or core operation is in Sri Lanka, ensure that you are efficient in Sri Lanka, because it is the cash flows that you generate from Sri Lanka that will fund your overseas expansion. I hate it actually when I hear some people who expand overseas, they speak so ill of Sri Lanka. They lose, they basically say negative stuff about Sri Lanka, saying, oh, Sri Lanka is going through the worst of times, Sri Lanka is this, Sri Lanka is that. But then the first question that I want to ask them is, where did they earn their money to even expand overseas, right? They earned it in Sri Lanka. And we should take pride. When we go to a foreign land, we should show those people, oh, well, we are coming, with a rich experience. We are coming with a lot of skill sets, or maybe even we are bringing in certain degrees of technology, right? Because of what we gained in Sri Lanka. So for anyone who's expanding overseas, the first thing that they must figure out is, okay, when we go into an overseas market, do we have a solid product or service? If you do not have a solid product or service, just for the mere sake of expanding overseas, no one should do it, right? Thirdly, first and second, obviously, you have to ensure that you have a good product or service, which you can create your own niche in, probably, and what is your point of differentiation to go overseas. Number 3, when expanding overseas, always look at how best you can help Sri Lanka. You wouldn't believe me, Nadila, in our enterprise that we have in the UAE, 98% of the staff are Sri Lankan, right? And most of those Sri Lankans are doing far better in terms of their earnings rather than being in Sri Lanka. Now, Why are they earning a bit more? Obviously, when you do business overseas, you're earning in a foreign currency. And the foreign currency, obviously the appreciation because of certain economic circumstances in Sri Lanka, that appreciated value of the foreign currency, right, when sent back to Sri Lanka is far more valuable. But the aim of taking people from Sri Lanka, and why we strive to do that, was give people employment overseas, help people improve their lives in Sri Lanka, and in a way, in our own small way, contribute towards the growth of Sri Lanka. So, if anyone wants to go overseas, please, my humble request to anyone is, right, try to take a product or service from Sri Lanka, which is being served in overseas market from people who are in Sri Lanka, or take our staff there, right, take our people there. Let the world see our talents. We have the best of software graduates. We have the best of software developers. We may have really good people in various fields. Try to take our talent overseas, but ensure that part of that cash comes back to Sri Lanka. Right? So that is my message to anyone who's trying to look at expansion overseas.
That's a great insight. Thank you very much. And I totally agree with you on that. There must be some sort of cash flow coming back to Sri Lanka. Thank you very much for spending your valuable time here with me to answer these questions that I had for you. I know you just landed in Sri Lanka from your overseas business work. So thank you very much. I know you have a tight schedule.
So anyway, Nethila, I'm very grateful to you for having me on the show, right?
Yeah, and this is going to help a lot of children, parents, a lot of Sri Lankans who are...
Correct. And also my humble request to parents is, let your child determine their passion. Let your child come up and say, I want to do this. Support them wholeheartedly. It may be out of the traditions of going to normal corporate life. Maybe whatever it is, support your child's passion. 100%. People who are supported in their passion will be the next wave of successors in Sri Lanka. I want to see more Sri Lankans like you, right? Youngsters like you, highly successful youngsters who can really do far better than us. And at all times, I am humbly requesting everyone, please speak a word of positivity about Sri Lanka. Please move away from this negativity. If you can, at all times, position Sri Lanka as the most beautiful land that has the greatest amount of opportunity. The more we do for Sri Lanka, the more return we will create for future generations of Sri Lanka. And we will be very proud citizens one day. So thank you, Nithila, for having me on this show.
Thank you very much for coming.